Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Friday Review. We're coming to you live from sunny Mountain View, where the pollen is so thick in the air that there's a good chance I will choke right before the allergies kill me. My name's Redo Meyer. I'm joined here in the studio today by the ever-present Fred Chung and the
hello,
irrepressible, irredeemable.
You are drunk, sir.
Roman Urich has come all the way down from San Francisco on the 101
How was the drive this morning?
I took a bus.
Okay,
so
all right.
Wow.
I don't know how the drive.
You got the license? That's nice work. So thank you for coming down and joining us here. So as always, we're going to try and review a bunch of apps today. We've got 5 on our list. We'll get through as many as we can. Anything we don't, we will put at the top of the list to check out next week. We're here every week, same time, 1 p.m. Pacific, which is I think 8 p.m. UTC, something like that. So if there's more apps you want to see, there'll be more apps every week. So let's kick off. Let's have a look at our first app for today. I think we're going to have a look at Heart Sounds and Murmurs, which was at the top of our list, or at the bottom of our list last week. We didn't quite get enough time to look at. So I know, Fred, you've checked out a few medical apps. If I'm having a heart attack and the first thing I do is grab my phone before I call 911, I check this first, right?
You check this. You go to Google Play and check it. So, like Reto said, the title of this app is Heart Sounds and Murmurs, and I would characterize it as a medical reference application. Let's have a look at the tablet view here, Ian. All right, great, thanks. Let's launch the apps. This is the icon. Oh, it flips right into portrait mode. So let's rotate the device back. All right, cool. So this is a collection of different sound clips that represents different heart conditions, abnormal heart conditions, and murmurs. As you can see, we have a dark theme here, which is very nice. It's got the hollow theme with no additional menu item down here, and it's got an overflow menu up on the upper right hand corner in the action bar, as you can see on screen. So it's a pretty simple, no BS application. I would imagine it's got a pretty good reference value for people in the industry, for medical professionals and or students. It shows you a bunch of sound clips. Oops, let's go back. And you go through a bunch of them. A lot of these I can't really tell the difference. Maybe you guys can.
No.
Able to tell?
Yeah.
So is this the way it's supposed to work? So rather than listening to your own heart, it gives you the sounds that you should be listening for if someone has a heart condition. Is that right?
Yeah. So it basically illustrates a bunch of different.
It's a library of sound clips mostly, right?
It's for medical reference purposes, I would say, and based on Google Play ratings, people seem to like it, and that's why we are reviewing it here also. So my first reaction looking at this screen is that legibility can be improved a little bit, right? Because well, you have the dark theme with white text, but I think especially on the tablet, you can look for opportunities to increase the font size a little bit to make it more legible. What do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see right away, like it's sort of the height of each of the list item looks to be about right, but you've kind of got this small text just tucked away to the left and top, really sort of thin.
Yes,
thin looking.
Yeah, exactly, and especially for the detailed text here, we have some issues with the orientation, but. Is it something that can be controlled, or do I need to flip? Okay,
no,
there you go. Great. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it'll work right away, but it's completely out of your control.
Yeah.
For the detail view, you're saying? Yeah, and basically, when you get into the detail view, it plays back the sound, and it shows you this kind of progress bar, and then touching the screen, I believe,
swipe it.
Oh, double tap. Was it double tap or? One of those gestures basically replays it, and it's not 100% discoverable.
Right.
And when I looked at this last week before we were able to actually talk about it, and we ran out of time, I did notice a bunch of things here. Just in terms of basic usability. Obviously, on a tablet, the line lengths are really long and the font sizes are small, which we alluded to. But things like basic things like raising the volume of the sound, right? I mean, I actually found that it was barely, mostly impossible to actually hear the sound. And so you may want to try to amplify it so that it's, at a default volume, default system volume, you can actually hear what you're, what it is. The other thing is, there's a lot of opportunity for visuals, and I know that like sound is, I mean, you can't visualize sound, it's not the easiest thing to do. You have to, show the waveforms and whatnot, but it may be something that that you can add. Maybe like, if there's a pulse, like boom, 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 maybe you can sort of like illustrate that somehow using a graph, right?
Right.
Maybe like show on a timeline, not exactly the exact waveform, but kind of like beats, like circles indicating here's where a beat is. And I would even, on a tablet especially, put this on the listing of all the sounds, just so that you can really easily scan things. So if I'm a doctor, right, and I'm measuring, and again, I am not a doctor, so I have no clue what I'm talking about.
Imagine you're a doctor.
Yeah, imagine like Fred is having some sort of issue, and I measure his heart rate or whatever it is. I can roughly sense, oh, there's like 3 beats happening and they're irregular. And so it'd be really good to be able to just scan that list very easily and see, hey, where are those 3 beats? Say, here, that's the one that I want, and then go into that and hear the audio.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think the visualization there is really important because it's going to be quite subtle in a lot of times what you're listening to, and seeing the waveform is going to give you that prompt as to what it is you're listening for. So yeah, I think that's a really neat trick. I think that tablet's rebooted itself, huh?
Right. Yeah. Switch to the other device.
Yeah. No, that's it's an interesting point actually, because it would not install on my ICS phone device. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, having looked at it here, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be available on phones. And in fact, it looked like a layout that was sort of optimized for phones more so than tablets.
Yeah. Right.
So I would say that to the developer is check that out. Make sure that you're not limiting your app to fewer devices than it's capable of running on.
Actually, I verified that verified this very same app on the phone, and it works.
And it works.
Yeah, it's one of the few apps that have no special permissions. It's a self-contained application.
No internet permission.
No internet connection. It's gotten all the sound clips available within the APK itself, which is kind of cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I did want to mention a couple of other things really quickly, if you guys don't have any other comments. But the launcher icon was extremely dim. And apologies that you can't see this, but the launcher icon was pretty much just like a black background and like some very wiry like shape. I think it was in the form of a heart, but it was almost impossible to discern what it was representing. So I would definitely recommend using kind of like maybe even a non-square launcher icon, maybe one in the shape of a heart. So something like that. Also, the default Hollow theme is fine. I personally prefer the Dark Action Bar theme, Hollow Light Dark Action Bar. That's something that I think always adds like a nice touch to apps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the last bit was on the sound detail screen. Like when you get into the detail screen, you saw that there was like there was an action bar with no title, and then there were 2 fake titles or titles underneath the action bar. I just want to note to everybody that the action bar actually supports both a title and a subtitle. And since the length of the text wasn't that long, it seems like you could probably represent the title of the screen in the action bar itself. So you have the sound name at the top as the title, and then under that you have the subtitle, which I think was kind of like a category or kind of like a further smaller description.
Right.
So you can easily avoid having 2 extra UI elements on your screen, and then that will leave more space for like the waveform, for example.
Perfect. All right. Okay, so I think we'll move on to our next app, and we're fortunate enough to have the developer for this app online as well with us today. So this is Real Colors Pro. Really interesting app. I'm going to fire it up here on the tablet as well. But while that comes, or on the phone, I should say. But while that comes up, did you want to tell us a little bit about your app and sort of the concept behind it?
Yeah, sure. So we're 3 guys, and basically the app extracts color schemes, color palettes from pictures, from photos, from gallery, from camera. That's what we're basically trying to do, and the goal is for designers to get inspiration from real life, from pictures, from sites.
Very nice, very nice. So let's switch to the phone view here, and we can have a look at it. And straight away you can see it's a really nice looking app. Sort of a really beautiful intro here, which I really like. And then you've got your actions right here. Now, these aren't standard buttons or anything like that, but I think it's pretty clear straight away that they're actionable. So we'll try and choose a picture from the gallery on this phone and see what we have here. Oh, cool. So it's my things.
I got some pictures.
I got some pictures here. So let's go with this graveyard scene. Oh, that didn't work. Interesting. Something went wrong. So I have one question for you. Is it supposed to work on anything from the gallery, so including things which have to be downloaded, or is it just things which are going to be already on the phone?
So the problem with gallery is that the new gallery doesn't return correct URI on all phones. Sometimes it returns on 3.0 returns an HTTP address.
Gotcha.
So you have to get from the internet. And some on 4.0, some version of gallery returns a correct URI, but some doesn't return, like com.google.android or com.android. So we try to fix most of the we have like hard coded stuff inside the app, so we can get all the. So basically, the Picasa, there are some problems with the Picasa depending on the version of the gallery used.
Gotcha.
So if you this is probably something more for our office hours, but if you get back a URI that starts with content, right, and when you query it, it gives you an error, then that's definitely a bug. We need to fix it.
It's on code that it's on issues. A lot of people commented on it.
Okay, we'll have to check that.
So in the meantime, I'm going to take a photo of our rooming here to see if we can get a color scheme.
I expect to see some green.
Green, black, and brown.
So this is a picture of our hangout room with the couch, which you guys may have seen before. So let's see what kind of color scheme we should
probably flip it into portrait.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry, just flip it into portrait mode. This,
no, it's nice that it works in landscape.
It works in landscape, and you can switch between portrait and landscape, and it doesn't lose the progress of what it's doing, which is all really nice.
Very nice.
So this is kind of the main screen. This is where the magic happens, and again, it's really attractive. It looks really nice. You get this sort of swathed sort of graph of the colours in the scene, and sort of the more vivid and more colourful the scene is, obviously the more vivid this graph is. So this isn't the best example because it's a very sort of plain image that we're taking, but you get the idea here. You've got that sort of colour wheel, and then each of the colours which exists in the photo are represented there.
Yeah, I'd say it's a great app for shopping for paint.
Absolutely.
If you are renovating a room or something.
Yeah, if you want to have a house that looks nice but have absolutely no design skills, this is probably going to be useful.
Like me.
Yeah, people ask for Pantone support and RAW support.
Right.
Very nice.
Pantone would be awesome.
That's really great.
Yeah. So again, you can go through here, and so this is real. So this is presenting, I presume, a list of colours represented within the image. Is that right?
Yes, by all rules, we get the only colors that are in the image. So real is like our magic sauce, if you want, and the other rules are standard in color theory.
Gotcha.
Split complementary.
So yeah, we can go through here and pick like complementary colors to the ones listed in the image, and so these are the sorts of things you would use to try and, you know, if you were painting the room, you'd pick something complementary.
It's kind of like a Adobe Color Cooler. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like Adobe Cooler, but taking a real image as a source. Very, very cool idea.
Very nice. And so we've got a whole bunch of different options here: shades, split complementary, a bunch of stuff that I have no idea what the meaning of is, but all of which give you these sort of range of colors that suit the scene. And you can kind of click through each of these colors and edit them and modify them to sort of customize them exactly the way that you want, using, you know, a bunch of different techniques, for color modification. And then there's a couple of nice tips as well here. You can create a wallpaper using the color scheme.
Very nice.
Export it. So one of the comments I wanted to make here is on the export window, where it's sort of hard coded to export to mail. It would be nice if this was more of a share or a send to implementation, where, you know, you can specify the message that you want to send and which things that you want to attach to it, but then let the user distribute that however they want, whether it's through mail or through some other app.
How do you actually export the color values? I'm guessing you don't just export hex. Do you like create an image, or do you create HTML?
It's an HTML with beautiful colors and details and the attachments, all the.
So one thing you may want to consider doing is maybe rendering to a bitmap, saving that as a PNG, and allowing sharing that PNG through whatever service, be it Facebook or Google+.
Yeah, that's our next plan for the next
Cool.
version, to have like one image that represents everything in one place.
Yeah, definitely. So what you're doing here is actually sending an email, but not using any of the clients on the device. I definitely think about changing that so that you're just packaging up the contents for an email, which can be sent using either Gmail or the email app or whatever else I've got installed.
That means you have to have a picture, because we couldn't send HTML with standard apps.
True.
Right. No, that's very true. And so along similar lines, if we go back to the scheme, you've got the share button, and I think right now that links directly to Facebook. So again, it would be nice if this was just the standard send to intent, so you could send it via Twitter, Facebook, G+, or whatever.
A lot more flexible.
Absolutely. Because I have lots of people on Twitter who love my color suggestions, but not so much on Facebook. We basically need to find, because we need to push the images on some server, so we can, if you want to share it with everybody, so they can access it. So that's why we hard coded it with Facebook. Like if you want to share with all the apps, what do we send? We need to send a URL, right, to the image, so they can upload.
You basically just have to attach in your action, when you fire off action send, right? You basically have to have a content provider, I believe, that allows the app like Google Plus or Facebook to access your image. Then that app will take care of uploading it to the server and doing whatever it needs to. So basically, you only have to have a local copy of that PNG, and then the app that actually does the sending will get it from your app using a content provider, and then upload it to their servers.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought I need to. Okay, I'll check it out. But I think I tried it, and for some apps, so they upload it themselves.
Yeah. So I mean,
okay.
So the very simplest thing to do, obviously, if you're like Google Plus, right, is to just accept the URL and then show a preview of that URL, and if that URL is an image, then it just shows the image. But Google Plus, I believe, I mean, again, this is up to the app. I'm just thinking of, take another one, Dropbox, for example. Dropbox is definitely a case where if you try to give them an image, they're not going to store the URL. They'll actually take the image and upload it into your account. That's one definite example.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's definitely going to help you out and give you a lot of flexibility there, which I think is going to be really useful. Otherwise, if we're just talking about the app in general, the look and feel, I love the way you've done navigation here. It's not the way that we necessarily always suggest that we do nav, but I think this looks really good, and it's definitely intuitive.
Yeah,
very intuitive.
The only kind of navigational issue I had was really the home button. I think that should just be an up button to take you back to that home screen.
Oh yeah.
And the other thing was, if you can go back to the home screen for a second, this home screen is gorgeous. I love the custom typeface and everything.
Really nice.
The one thing I would consider doing is adding a little bit more content in here. So for example, for library, you may want to have kind of the most recent or the two most recent color palettes that you've created, just so you can like jump back into them very quickly without having to go through the gallery and then the library or
recent menu.
Yeah. One thing we actually wanted to, for the next version, we want to remove the main screen and just move the user directly to library. What do you think? And they have because it's useless. The first screen is not.
Yeah, I think
you can access everything from the action bar with the camera, and if you go directly to library, you have access to all those.
It's an interactive splash screen, really.
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion would be, like, as a first run splash screen, I think it's perfect. It's something which comes up, displays your brand in a way that's really appealing and really shows people that you care about design. And given that your target audience is designers, I think that's really important. But I think you're right. I think once you've done that first pass, so you can remove the library thing because it's only going to be for the first time. And so right at the beginning, you choose between take a picture or choose from the gallery to get that workflow. And then once you've done that once, I think you can skip that entirely and just launch the apps, as you say, straight into the library chooser. I think it's a great workflow. Otherwise, everything's good here. It's customized for ice cream sandwich. You've got, I think is that a custom overflow menu? Is that a pop-up menu rather than an actual overflow menu?
Which one?
Yeah, when I
Because I don't see the.
oh, you of course you don't see it. So when
I
I
think
hit
it's,
the
I think it's correct. I
is
think
it?
it's, yeah, it's just
Custom
the selector, like the red hue that that happens when you press is just it's a themable attribute.
Gotcha.
I think it actually does look like a
it's
standard
19.
ICS
Right.
actually.
Oh, cool. All right, then that's great. So you've
Yeah.
got the overflow menu, you've got the action bar with actions, which is great. You
The
know,
icons in the action bar look a little dated. You may want to tweak them a little bit to use our new iconography, but
Oh, okay, cool.
but otherwise nice. So I'm a big fan. I think this is something which we
Yeah, I
can
like
go
it.
ahead and suggest to the editorial team
Yeah.
to maybe take a look at featuring. Was there any other specific feedback that you had?
I have one feedback for the tablet version of this particular screen we have. Our tablet just died. I wasn't able to revive it, but imagine what you're looking at is a stretched screen for tablet, which overall looks very nice based on our earlier comments. But for this particular screen, when I first looked at it, I paid so much attention to the graphics here, and then I missed the bottom two buttons. I had to go back to the same screen a couple more times to find it. So maybe you can think of ways, maybe on a bigger screen, make the two buttons on the bottom more visible somehow.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And just for the record, if you choose the bottom two, let you switch between the image. So this is the colors associated with
Oh, cool.
Fred and Roman as they were preparing for today's review. Roman gets all of his strength from bananas, much like Banana Man, for those of you who are old enough to remember Banana Man.
what is
Something for you to look up in your own time. Is it safe for work? Is it not safe for work? Who can say?
Let's Google it.
Who can say?
No one knows.
Yeah, so awesome. Thank you for nominating your app. It was a real pleasure to look at.
Yeah, great work.
Yeah, we'll send you some notes just to summarize some of the suggestions that we had afterwards. But we'll definitely be putting it forward, and hopefully we can see it featured somewhere in Google Play.
Great, thanks.
Right. Thanks for joining us.
Brilliant. Okay, so that was fun. Let's have a look. What do we got up next? It's Notification Agenda, I think, is the next app that we're going to take a look at. So I'm going to exit out of here and fire that up. So this is Notification Agenda that we've got on the phone screen here as well. Or at least we will soon. In the meantime, did you guys have any? Yeah, here we go. Perfect. Let me just.
What were you going to ask?
I was going to ask what you guys thought of it. So maybe I should give a bit of feedback first on what the app is. That makes
Sure.
sense. All right. So what this is basically a task list, as much as far as I can
Right.
tell.
Mhm.
But its sort of claim to fame, its uniqueness here, is that every time you add a note to your agenda, you can make it become persistent in your notification tray. So let me just get rid of this one. So you can see here that test 2 has come up. And so you can see on the right hand side, we've got this little visibility icon. Now, one of my pieces of feedback here is that this touch target is way too small and impossible to press. So I'm going to try and use the very smallest part of my pinky. And you'll see it's now added that note to my notification tray. And then you can toggle that and it will be added and removed.
Oh, that's a touch target.
That is a touch target.
Right.
One thing-
there was
An impossible to touch target, but a touch target nonetheless.
Can I make a note on that? So
Please.
I actually had a Google Plus post on this exact problem a while ago, maybe like several months ago.
I remember this, yeah.
And it was about touch delegates. Basically, the idea is that anytime you have a list item with inner targets, like that tiny little eye there, you want to make sure that your touch zones are as simple and like as big as possible. So in this case, and I'm just going to briefly summarize what's the problem.
Sure.
In this case, basically, if you touch above or below that eye, you end up touching the list item. So what you want to do is you want to kind of simplify the zone so that the left side of the list item is basically the list item itself, and the right side, at least 48 dips in width, and the full height of that list item is that secondary target.
Yeah, because it's pretty much a 0% chance that someone's going to try and hit the list item just above or to the right-hand side of that eye, huh?
And in case you can't make your view the full height of the list item, you can use something called a touch delegate to basically say, when you touch this location on the parent view, then actually send that touch to the secondary view.
Nice.
So it's just a secondary way of doing that.
Yeah, and it's a really good example of when this is the right approach, because this looks good here, having the little eye. I don't think you'd really want that to take up the full list, because it would kind of be cramped and it would hit the one below and above. So having it inset, I think, is the right approach. But yeah, you definitely want to make sure that that's touchable, because otherwise you do what I just did there, which is click it and it registers as a list view click. So this is the note view. You know, so just to finish off sort of the details, we've got a view page effect here, so that you can click across and choose your icon and go back and edit the notes, and that's all nice. Overall UI look and feel is reasonable. You've got this sort of action bar like effect up the top. I don't know that it's an actual action bar, but it looks like one.
No, it's not.
It's not really an action bar.
It's
It looks like one, and it acts like one. So to a certain degree, that's a reasonable approach. But I think Roman's got some more detailed comments about this. So yeah, maybe you want to kick off, because that's the functionality, right? It's notes, and they persist in the notification tray. So
I mean, a lot of the comments that I had were around the action bar. So the first issue is that you have this up icon in the top left, but it shows the home iconography and the up iconography. So that's a little confusing. So basically, you never want something that's both home and up. It really should be either home or up, and in general, you should prefer up, since that's kind of the formalized pattern. And so for up, you basically just show your app icon, and it's a way to introduce branding into the app, and kind of the little left caret. The other issue is that on the home screen, that top left area is actually the overflow.
Yeah, let's go back to the phone layout, and we can see this quite clearly here. So we've got this sort of traditional action bar with the actions over here on the right, with refresh and create new. And actually, I just want to point out that the create new icon over here actually looks a lot like an edit icon. So you may want to consider replacing that with sort of the thin plus symbol, which I think is more the style. And what Roman's referring to over here is the app icon. So I think to go back to what you were saying before, this should be consistent, right? That should always be that icon, and then either with the back or up caret or not. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that icon. It should be some sort of iconography or a logo, or nothing at all. But definitely the home icon, like having the home button, that's kind of deprecated. You should no longer use that.
Okay, so so here's the really interesting thing, is that, so, you know, as an Android user, I think what we all expect is that if you hit something with a drop down on this side, it's going to be navigation, like in Gmail when you choose between your inboxes or labels. And here, it's actually the overflow menu, which is a little...
It's quite innovative.
It reminds me of Mac OS X, right? You touch the Apple, and it gives you the system preferences. It's very strange on Android.
I've seen people duplicating iPhone OS paradigms on Android, never before Mac OS. That I think is new. So this is just confusing. Bottom line, you're not expecting an overflow menu here. It means that it's either completely undiscoverable or completely unintuitive. So it's fine to have these things, but they should totally be on an overflow menu over here on the far right hand side.
Yeah, having the consistency would be pretty important.
Yeah, I mean,
for users.
So for these sorts of things, it's like no user is ever going to expect this, and when they are looking for settings, they're going to be expecting them over on this side. So that's kind of a must fix straight away.
Get on it.
I did have so two more. Well, actually, one more general thing is when you get into the edit or the detail view. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways in which you can accept or cancel. Basically, if you press back, it cancels. If you press up, it also cancels. If you press the X, it also cancels. Okay. The only way to actually save is to press the checkbox.
Interesting.
So what you should do is you should simplify this. So in general, you don't want users to lose progress, right? So if I just typed out, and I know this is for a notification, so it's probably a very short note, but if I just typed out something fairly important, like a phone number or an ID or something that I have to remember, pressing back should not just cancel it. It should probably save it and just automatically assume that the user meant to press OK. Or, you know, if you absolutely have to, then show a dialog saying, actually, do you want to save or not? But what it does now is the incorrect behavior, I think, is that you know, it actually just discards.
Right. But I think the first option you mentioned is the preferred way, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like the Gmail behavior, right? When you're composing an email, when you press back, it automatically saves your email message in progress into draft.
Yeah, particularly because I think it kind of implies, I don't know how it works behind the scenes, but it implies that if if I'm typing away something detailed here and then I get an incoming phone call and then that comes up and I do something else and the app gets killed sometime in the background, I'm not convinced here that when I start it up it's going to be saved.
That's right.
And I think you make a good point. There's 3 ways to not save your information and only 1 way to save it. Kind of implies that not saving your information is more important than saving it.
Yeah.
I can't think of any situations where that's likely the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to switch that priority around. And I'm having a vision of Jens from the UI team telling me something along the lines of not even needing to have an X button. It's basically just a tick, and you press that, and it goes back. And there's a way to do that with the action bar. Is that right?
So what do you mean by tick?
There's like an accept. There's a way to say that I'm happy with this edit.
Yeah. So the top left, in some of our apps, we actually have the top left as a checkbox and done. And you can't do that using by just simply saying, "Oh, do that." You have to provide, I think, a custom view. But it's easy to probably grab it from the open source project and do it. But basically, the top left, you don't even need the icon or an up button. It could just be done, checkbox done.
Nice.
And then the top right, having something like discard, like the text discard.
Yeah, and that's a nice effect because then you're basically saying this is just a temporary modal scenario where you want to do something and then just hit and go back to where you're from. It's minimizing the number of different ways to interact with that particular screen, right?
Yeah, basically, if I've gotten to the screen, I've already made the conscious decision to save something.
Yeah.
So that should be the default the default expectation is that the user actually wants to save what they're writing.
Right. Yeah. So you have to make the assumption that the user would have to consciously cancel it. Then you cancel it.
Yeah,
right?
it's like, I've made this worse than it was. Make it go away. Okay, nice. Now, I know there was a couple of interesting things to do, I think, with the action bar that I think you guys noticed before when we were taking a look at the app. Am I remembering correctly?
Besides, so I think I mentioned all the things that I noticed.
I thought there was a way that you could. Oh no, that's a different. I'm thinking of a
different app.
Different
app.
We'll come to that.
Yeah.
It also has a green action bar, doesn't
yes.
it? That's confusing.
2 notes apps, same action bar color.
Excellent. Okay.
So I have one more suggestion is that when you're in edit mode, this is the text screen where you can input some information and swipe right, and you pick an icon. When you go back, ideally, I like to see the selected icon displayed somewhere here to give me an indication that, okay, this is the icon that's going to be displayed next to the notification. Something
almost like a preview, right? Almost like a preview below it.
Showing because the notification takes a known amount of space, which isn't that significant. So
that would be a great suggestion, especially on the tablet, which used to be running. When I first tested it on a tablet, imagine again what you're looking at here is an expanded screen. You have a lot of white space, and this developer, you probably should look into increasing the side margins a little bit to make it look visually nicer. I'm sure Roman has more.
For sure, I mean the padding for sure. Open up a can of worms. The padding for sure. Something you could do with the titles is I think we mentioned this in the Hangout office hours, but a neat thing to do is just use the list separator text view style as the heading, and then completely remove the background on the text fields themselves, so the text field effectively becomes just an open area of, inviting you to type content, and then you apply the border to indicate the different regions on the headers, not on the text fields.
Nice. So overall, I think it's definitely an app with potential. It's kind of a very simple idea, but if it's kind of a good way of being able to put things in a place which is visible. One little bit of feedback that I did have in terms of functionality is I thought it would be nice, once you've got these notifications here, to be able to dismiss these. So these aren't dismissible, as you can see by the fact that they're bouncing back. But if I could dismiss this, and then it would just toggle that visibility flag within the app, I think that would be kind of a neat thing. Because I could see this would be a much more convenient shopping list app for me than a lot of things.
Swipe, got the milk, got the cheese.
Exactly, bang, swipe. And then I don't have to navigate through an app or any of that time consuming to keep the little box. It's just bang, 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 bang. So that, to me, would actually make this really useful.
And I think you can specify in the notifications framework a dismiss intent, so that when it gets dismissed, you can actually go ahead and disable it, so you don't have to kind of have a sync or anything. You just get a notification or an event rather when it gets dismissed.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be my big tip. So I would say think about that. The main thing I think here is around some of the UI elements. I think tidy them up, and you're going to have something which is a lot more intuitive for people to use.
absolutely.
Cool. Any other comments? Should we move on?
No.
Let's move on.
All right, brilliant. So this is the other app that I was thinking of, G-Notes.
G-Notes.
Let's take out
Also
G-Notes.
with a green theme.
Green theme, yes, exactly. So, all right. See, now I can see why I was confused. This is a similar sort of theme going on here
They're
with
similar
the,
indeed.
with the pseudo action bar sort of scenario. Yeah, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about this app? What did you think? What were your thoughts? So again, it's notes, right? Different way of collecting notes.
It's notes. I think that I mean, for me, I'm a UI guy. I sometimes just get blinded by pixels, and I don't actually see what the app does. But the one thing I really noticed that I did like in this Notes app is that there are a lot of ways to take notes, right? You can capture audio, you can take a photo with your camera, and whatever. And everybody has a different way of taking notes, right? So like I personally just do text. Some people do voice notes and things like that. So what this app does really well is it actually lets you customize the action bar. And if you touch the top right, you see kind of all the different ways of taking a note. You can actually drag one of those items into the action bar.
That's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, to make it a conscious, like, kind of,
nice.
You're telling the app, this is how I like to take notes, right? So that ability to personalize and customize is really cool.
Right. What happens if you try to drag more icons? It doesn't accept it.
Well, let's have a look.
Yeah, I'm
No,
curious.
it
on how
doesn't.
they-
No.
So you have to
It
drag
just
them down.
replaces the one which
Oh,
you drop
cool.
it on top of. So you get
But-
up to 3 at a time.
That's pretty innovative stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably almost certainly using a custom action bar, which in this case, I mean, what I would do is if I were doing this, I would use the standard action bar, but I would have a custom action view that was kind of wide enough to take 2 or 3 icons that would act as the drop target and not kind of rewrite the entire action bar just to do that.
That's a good point because you can have that custom action view which has all of the functionality included, transparent background so that it just sits on top. But that would be nice. But yeah, it's definitely useful functionality. So again, you can take a photo.
Picture notes.
Let's go this way instead. that's beautiful, Roman. All right. So that's what Roman looks like without the fancy processing we're doing on the back end.
Right.
Let's go back into portrait mode. So it's nice to see that this and most of the apps we've looked at today are all work really well in landscape and portrait mode, which is awesome. So that's a note of Roman in his beautiful glory, and we can add additional context here. Roman. So this app is a good example which takes exactly the opposite approach to the one we were looking at beforehand, where I don't think that there is a way to cancel what you're doing. You basically just go back.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say that because it's not always clear, like some apps don't save everything, I'm kind of looking on the screen here for a way to confirm that I want to save this note, I don't want to lose it, and all I get is 2 back buttons. So that kind of breaks another rule of having an on-screen back button.
Yeah.
You don't need to.
Right.
So what I would suggest here is actually really simple, is just turn that into a tick, into an accept.
Right.
And then you've got exactly the same functionality as you're doing now, but it's a little more obvious to me what this is going to
You
do.
know, the difference between, and when we first introduced Up, people were like, that's back, right? And it is it's different. It's for sure different. We have documentation in the navigation section of Android Design on this, but sometimes to a user the difference can actually be in iconography, right? That icon looks like back. The Up icon, it's a left caret, but users are trained over the course of using their device. They're trained to understand that left caret and those exact angles and that exact width, that actually represents something else besides back. And it's almost subtle. It's not, if you ask a user, oh, what is that? They'll say back, but they know that it behaves differently.
Yeah.
And so when you start introducing iconography that is counter that, their expectations change.
Right. Yeah, and that's something which we get asked about a lot. Like, should every app look exactly the same as specified in the guidelines? Is there room for divergence there? And there absolutely is. The key is really just to make sure that user expectations are met, so that when you're pressing something, you have a really high degree of confidence that it's going to do what you want it to do. So I think that's kind of the key.
Right. The other thing I would like to point out is that not only does this app have a soft back button on the screen that we just saw, and I believe if you look into the settings,
Settings.
setup actually.
Oh, is it menu settings?
Go back. go back. Basically there's another style of back button.
Oh, I see.
It's a different style, but I can't, for some reason I can't.
Was it the collapse
the
expand
back
button?
Yeah, this guy, this back button.
Oh
Here.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 strikes. Not only do you have a soft back
Sorry,
button,
let's put that there. Yeah, you don't want
You
an
have-
actual back button. That's not pretty.
you also have an actual back button that's next to the hard back button.
Yes.
Let's
All right.
go that way. All right, so that's unfortunate. Let's see the other interesting comment. So this goes along the same lines of confusing iconography. So up here we've got what looks, and it's pretty small on screen here. So even at 720, I don't know that you guys are going to see what that is, but it's sort of the app icon, and it's got a tiny little left triangle next to it. And so that looks like it should be up, right?
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's collapse, which actually makes more sense in this context as to what it is. But that was totally opaque to me. I had no idea what that was going to do. Do you have suggestions as to a better way to sort of display that kind of function?
So the closest pattern to this, I'd say, is something that we see more on tablets and portrait. This is so if you go to Android Design again and you go to multi-pane layouts, there's a section that talks about orientation change.
Mm-hmm.
So how to deal with fragments, specifically on portrait and landscape, right? You know, making sure that you have the same functionality across both. And in this case, you don't have 2 fragments. You really just have a kind of alternative navigation along the left side. And so I don't think that it makes too much sense to have this. You may be able to do the same exact thing by offering kind of left and right swipe or even a drop down in the action bar. But if you absolutely positively have to stick with something like this, what I would make sure to do is follow the kind of that pattern on tablet. Basically the idea is that up button is always up. If you press it and that left pane is not visible, then it shows the left pane, and it should probably slide in to indicate kind of
That'd be
that.
nice.
Yeah. But then if you press it again, it shouldn't collapse it. You should basically just be going up the hierarchy, not kind of toggling hierarchy.
Between, yeah.
So that's one thing I'd recommend. But again, I think the basic recommendation here is I think not to use this kind of side pane. First of all, on a phone in portrait, it limits your horizontal space, which is just in general not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think there are just other ways to do this that achieve the same result.
How does it look in landscape? Let's
Have a look.
have a quick
I
look.
mean, I was going to say as well, along the same lines, that an alternative to that is to basically have that's it. Makes a little bit more sense in landscape, having that kind of layout, because you've got the extra horizontal width. But one thing which you might want to consider as an alternative is to use sort of the more standard action bar navigation, very similar to what Gmail does, where you have a drop down here which lets you select which of the books that you want to have. So Gmail does this really well with labels and with accounts, so that's probably the approach that I would take. Another comment here, just generally, the cog here implies settings. What it kind of really is the ability to either add a new book or modify the existing ones. That's not entirely intuitive to me, the way that works. I'd consider sort of simplifying this so the cog becomes a plus sign and all you do there is create a new book, and that should probably be an action or something along those lines. And then edit could perhaps be a settings menu thing. So I don't want to go into too much detail there, but just generally speaking, I think it's a little bit of a confusing one.
The last bit is that there's a legacy menu button there.
There is.
Oh,
So
same as
that should
on
be
the
up in the
screen.
action bar.
Yeah.
So it actually, it does stuff, which means it's not technically a button of shame,
Right.
which is good. But yeah, you can really easily change this into an overflow menu and get the same functionality.
There you go.
So I would do that. I did like they've got some nice drag and drop action here. So you can
cool.
probably see they've actually got a thumbnail here, and you can drag it down to the bin to delete it.
It's cool.
Interestingly, the bin graphics look a little grainy, like it's too small. It's just been pulled up. So I'm guessing it's been borrowed from somewhere in the framework, and there's just no HDPI or HDPI assets for it. So again, I'd think about maybe, in fact, it's just a rounded rectangle with an icon in it, so you may be able to do something using a shaped drawable to achieve that in a scalable way. Okay, any other comments on that one?
That covers it. I think the one really cool thing is, I mean, the dragging in here is well done. I think there's some like flickering issues or whatever, but the dragging overall, it's a cool concept.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so I think that takes us to just about 45 past. So I think rather than look at the next two apps, we'll hold them off for next week.
For next time.
So that should pretty much wrap us up. Do stay tuned. We've got Ian Lewis and Dan Galpin. Ian is currently acting as our producer behind the scenes. He will be coming to front of camera, where he belongs, to host the Friday Review Games Edition. So that'll be up in just 15 minutes. Like we mentioned earlier, all of the apps which we look at here are self-nominated by their creators for us to take a look at. We'll be sending them some additional feedback after we're finished here. If you would like to have your app reviewed by us, there is a moderator page which you can get at the Android Developers Google Plus page at developer.android.com/plus. We'll be sure to post that there along with the video from this session, so we can check out your apps. Thank you very much for everyone who did nominate this week, particularly developer of Real Colors Pro, both for creating an awesome app and for joining us on the show to tell us.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Cool. All right. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope that I'll see you next week. And it is a long way from.
It's a long way from.
No, come on.
Yeah, you got a
full hour commute.
Man, I don't know how you do it. Well, thank you again. So in the meantime, until we see you all next week, thank you for joining us.
See you. Peace out, y'all.
Bye.